Let's get started. My name is Hannah. I am sitting in Germany. I'm from Carney Improve, and I'm on the coordination team of the ECCP project. Therefore, I am very often on the ECCP, and we're doing lots of services and events and such, one of which is the profile registration. So I wanted to walk you through kind of specifically for the cluster organization profiles, the updates, or how to upgrade your profile. And if you have your own profile and if you have editing rights, you're more than welcome to do it at the same time with me together, so we can kind of figure out what is maybe not so clear, or if I can help you in any other way, then we can do that together. So as you can see, I'm already logged in. Allow me to move the screen. So this probably will not show up for you. This is just because I have an admin account from the project, so disregard this. But this is the kind of homepage that you land on. I'm already logged in, so let's say I go to my user account, which is also a question that I receive a couple of times, is what's the difference between a user account and a profile? So the user account is, oh, you have no image? I am so sorry. Maybe I can start resharing.
So
let me see. Can you see my screen now?
Thank you.
Perfect. Excellent. Okay, so the difference between a user account and a profile is that the user account is something that you do at the very beginning. So you come to the ECCP for the very first time, you register with your email address and your password, and that's it. Whereas with the profiles, we have 8 different types of profiles. As you can see here, I kind of created lots of test profiles just to play around with. The profiles are for different types of users. So for example, you are in a cluster, most of you are cluster managers. So for you, the cluster organization profile will be the most relevant, but as you can see, we also have members of cluster organizations that will be linked to you, for example, or training provider, resource efficiency provider, etc. So if we would like to create kind of one profile, let's do that together from scratch. So in my user account, it says my name, Improve Germany, and then I click on register a profile. And then you see this overview. So this is the overview of the different types. For you, again, would be cluster organization. I do want to hint at the validation criteria in case you have not done that yet, but I assume all of you have gone through the process. It is still something that our team does manually. So
we haven't registered yet, so which one I have to choose?
You haven't registered yet?
No.
Okay, so you are a cluster organization, right?
Yeah.
Yes, so that will be then this one here. So we can click on register. And then you see this pop up on terms and conditions, data protection, etc. And the profile cluster organization with that is special that it has validation criteria. So any information that you put in terms of size of your organization, number of members in your organization, etc., that will be checked manually by our team. So our team will go to your website and check if the numbers are correct. Sometimes we have the case that a cluster says we have 200 members, and then we check and it's only 2 members. Yeah. So there's a minimum of 15 members that you need to have in order to get the validation approved by our team. But the validation team is very fast, and if there's anything that they're missing or they have questions, they reach out to you instantly, so you can figure out how to do that. But this is the kind of new registration overview. It might look a bit different than what you remember because we revamped it last year. So what you definitely have to have, let me just for the sake of audio quality, let me just mute everyone. In case you do have questions, please feel free to unmute yourself, of course. So here you would put down your cluster organization's name, and let's say test for my account. The reason why it just had this red font in it is because we integrated this afterwards, because sometimes people would fill out like random fields and then try to save it as a draft here at the bottom, but it doesn't work if the name isn't put down. So please start with the name, work your way from top to bottom. That's the easiest that you can do. And then logo, let's do logo. I hope I can find mine. Yeah, let's do just anything, really. Doesn't have to be the correct one. So then address, of course, of your company. I'll just do test for my account. The postcode, city, I'm in Düsseldorf. Country, I am in Germany. There we go. And then the date when the cluster organization was established, it only has to be month and year. It doesn't have to be the day. So you don't have to remember the exact date. So you can either put it in here with your keyboard like that, or you can click on here, let's say, I don't know, January. Then the legal form, let's say nonprofit. You can see that some of the fields have the optional behind it. Optional means that it's optional. All the other fields are mandatory. So all the mandatory fields at least have to be filled in, so you can send it for approval to the validation team. The optional ones I'll skip for now. Interested areas of collaboration. We have a couple of things that you can include. This is especially important for others that are visiting your profile and want to see what kind of areas you specialize in, what are the interests. Maybe you can collaborate, or maybe you can network. So that is the point. Same with the mission and objectives. For example, number of staff, because we did get the feedback that lots of people don't know the exact number of staff in their cluster organization, we are working with a scale here, so a rough estimate will do. The contact, so cluster management team, is very important because this contact will also be visible in your profile. So in case someone wants to reach out to you because you're working in the same ecosystem, or you have interesting opportunities that you want to discuss, then this will be what they see. So let me just put down test again. And then here you can say, I agree to have my email address displayed. If you remember from way back when, usually you would only have the messaging function on your profile. Lots of people have reported that the messaging function isn't great, so they would like to rather have the email address. So you can agree to have your email address shown on your profile. Yes, Tauno.
Yeah, just wondering if it's the same procedure for editing the existing profile already, or is this only for new profiles?
No, so the email address section has been integrated into all profile types, so no matter which profile type. If someone chooses that they don't want the email address shown, then it won't be shown, but if they agree, then it will be displayed in all profile types.
No, meaning that if we have a profile that has old emails, can we change them through the same process, or is there another kind of edit function somewhere that we can only go and edit one individual email?
That is a very good point. So if you have, let's say you created your profile, I don't know, 5 years ago, then you log in and you go on, let's see if I can show it to you. So me, for example, or we as Improve, we do have a profile as a, here, approved profiles, we have one as a training provider because that's essentially what we do. So here you can see I have these buttons that every user has. So every user who has editing rights, which is why I mentioned that in my email, will have these buttons. If I click on edit, and let's say you created your profile 5 years ago and you never logged in, and then you log in for the first time, this is what you see. If you click on edit, then you will be thrown automatically into the updated profile structure, so to say. So you can then add any more information. You can add the email address, social media. So anything that is in the new process will be shown, and you can include more information. Thank you very much for the question. That was a very good question.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, perfect. Then just languages. I mean, I really don't speak Arabic, but let's just put anything down. And then about us, same that from the old profile type. It's yeah, the same type of partnerships. So here you can say if you're working in any of the projects, you could also say none. Website, say test. Social media is optional. And then what is also new is that you can save your profile as a draft as soon as you entered your organization name in the top. So as soon as this one is filled in, you can already say, okay, save as draft. I will do this. I will finish this later. Whereas before it wasn't possible. So now it's enough for you to just enter the name of your organization, and then you can save it as draft. You don't need to fill out everything in one sitting. So I can save it as draft. Here on top, you will also see the different steps that you go through when registering a cluster organization. So for example, I could now move on to the next step. Oh, this wasn't saved. That's fine. So you could move on to the next step, and then there's information on the NACE 2-digit, the ecosystem, etc. Here, step 3 is the cluster composition. So that says, let's just choose anything so I can show you. In the cluster composition, it asks for your members, essentially. So again, you see here, these ones are optional. You don't have to fill them in, but I'll tell you the benefits of filling them in a second. So if I then go to cluster composition, I can say, okay, my cluster has, let's say, 15 to 50 members. I have 6 to 10 SMEs. Out of those, we have 1 to 5 startups. Let's say 6 to 10 bigger companies. So this is essentially what your cluster is made of, roughly. We don't need exact numbers. It's really just an indication of roughly. And then here also the total turnover. If you remember from the old profile type or the old setup, this was an open text field where you have to put in exact numbers, but that is very prone for error also in terms of, is it a full stop? Is it a comma? Is it, English version, whatever? So we included these Likert scales, essentially. Same for here, because we think that's easier to figure out than exact numbers. Oops. And then here, these two fields or these two steps you can see are optional. So these step 4 and step 5 are completely optional. There are no mandatory fields whatsoever. So step 4 and 5 is completely optional. Technically, you could kind of finish this off and say, okay, step 4 is optional. Don't want to do it. Step 5 is also optional. Okay, fine. And then you could go to the final stage. Takes a second to save. Now, what is important, as I just mentioned, for anyone who doesn't have a profile yet, they have to finish all the steps, all the mandatory fields for it to go to validation. So for me, for example, I now have a test account and this profile is awaiting validation. So as long as I don't get approved by the validation team, obviously I have to tell them this is a test profile. But as long as I don't get approval by the validation team, my profile will not be visible on the platform. So no one can search for this profile unless it is approved and published automatically by the team. But again, if there is anything that the team needs from you, if there are any questions or missing information or anything is not quite clear, sometimes we have the case that cluster organizations don't have a full website, but sometimes only like a Facebook profile, for example. So they have to ask follow-up questions to verify the information. They will reach out to you directly and say, hey, can you give us more information on this? Can you tell us what you're doing here and there? And as soon as that is figured out, then they can approve your profile and you will be published and visible for everyone. Yes, Marta, please go ahead.
Thank you, Hannah. I have a question. ELCA is the meta cluster, and we registered ourselves in the early 2018. And at that time, there was no possibility to register the meta clusters. So we were encouraged to register in the resource service provider, or whatever is the name. Can we transform our profile without canceling it and creating a new one from the resource efficiency service provider to the meta cluster?
No, unfortunately not, because the fields are different fields, so they are not one-to-one match. So there is no way that we can transfer the data to a different profile type.
Okay, and can I cancel my profile directly, or you have to do it for me?
I think you have to message.
I was looking for this kind of button, you know, to say cancel the profile, and I don't find it. So I think it's up to you.
That is a very good point. You can email the admin at cluster. I'll put it in the chat here for everyone also. So please email this account, which is the essentially the IT help desk, and then send them the link to the profile that you want them to delete, and they can delete it for you. And then you can create a new, you can, in any case, you can create several profiles. Like I just did, I am a training provider. I also created this test profile now.
Okay, so now I can have more profiles, because 1 year ago they told me that I cannot have more than one because it's creating the alias error.
No, you can have several. So you can, and for some it makes sense. So for example, some cluster organizations are also Euro clusters or are also in some partnerships, which is a separate profile type. So it makes sense that you can create several profile types. So for me, I'm
not saying to create let's say we also in the Euro clusters, we are also in all other strategic partnerships. So we have the profiles for this project on the ECCP. Right now the ELCA is registered as the resource efficiency provider. That is not correct, but it was the only choice that we had at that time. So when 1 year or 1.5 years ago we registered ourselves still using the same our name as ELCA, European Lightning Cluster Alliance, as the cluster organizations, we have been contacted by the CCIT team saying that we cannot have two profiles because it's creating the internal alias error. And,
yes. So so there's a difference.
That's why we decided to keep the oldest one, because it was the fullest with the information.
Yeah.
But so now we are saying that we can have more than one. So
yes. So there's a difference between profile types and accounts. You cannot have several accounts. So you can, for example, not register ELCA as cluster organization and then with a different email address, register ELCA as a cluster organization again. So you cannot have several email addresses all creating one and the same profile, right? So for example, you cannot have test one email address and then create the ELCA profile for cluster organization. and then also have test2 email address, and then create that the same profile type and the same organization, because that's a duplicate, and duplicates will not be approved by the validation team because they go through it manually. So it's not automated, but it's a manual process. So if they see that, Elka is there twice, both for cluster organization, just different email addresses, then that doesn't work. Then they will reach out and say, please decide which one you want to use. However, with one email account, you can create several profiles under that same account.
So I can keep the resource efficiency service provider and I can create another as meta cluster.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for me, for example, I'm here. My main profile is training provider because that's what we do. But I just created also a profile for cluster organization.
Okay.
So you could do the same. You could do, you could keep the resource efficiency provider if you want to, but you could also ask the IT team to delete it if you don't need it, and just create the meta cluster profile. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you very much.
Perfect. Before I show you why everyone should update their profiles, please, I see a hand, but no name. I'm so sorry. Marta, is that a new hand or an old hand?
Sorry.
Okay, all good. Are there any questions? Anything, any issues that you ran into? I put the IT help desk email in the chat. You can always email them with any errors, any issues, or anything that's not working, or if you simply don't know something, then they're more than happy to help. You can also contact, but this is more of a general email address. So the contact@clustercollaboration.eu email address. This is, for example, taken care of by the validation team. So they are checking this account, and they normally answer to all the questions related to ECCP, not only IT questions. But if you do have IT questions, it's the admin address that goes straight to our IT partner. Any questions? Anything really? All right. Then what I would like to show you, since we briefly looked into my training provider account, you will see that I have this badge that says Pro User. Most of you will probably have here Standard User, which is a new kind of feature that we introduced with the new platform. So Standard User is the default status. So everyone who creates a profile in the beginning is a Standard User. The Pro User is someone who has filled out all the mandatory fields. You can see here. Granted, the training provider profile is fairly short, so yours is a bit longer, but I filled out all the mandatory fields and at least half of the optional fields. So I showed you for the cluster organization, step 4 and 5, so the last 2 steps are completely optional. But if you do fill out all the mandatory fields and at least half of the optional fields, you will be automatically upgraded to Pro User. Now, the upgrade only means that you get this badge and you get exclusive access to certain tools. So, for example, if I go to ECCP services, you see here Trend Universe, which is very new. And this Trend Universe is only accessible to Pro users. So standard users will get, if they click on the button, they will get access denied or something like that. So the Trend Universe is a new tool that we introduced, and again, it says only Pro users, which is kind of a benchmarking tool. Let me show you what the tool looks like. So you'll be forwarded to the ECCP Trend Universe, and I already played around with it, so some things are kind of already used. But we're looking at the different ecosystems, and then I can say, okay, for me, you know, let's say digital is interesting. Then you get some explanations, and then we're looking at megatrends, macro trends, key insights, and statistics. So what I can do is I can look at megatrends for digital, And then it has several types of topics under digital. And then I can see, okay, for example, data technologies, what is the benchmark? And I can see here the database says, okay, and this is how well performing the database is in terms of the different areas. So data technology is here, digitally connected products, etc. Whenever I click on any of these, or even here, I also get additional insights. So I get trend facts, I get details on impact, I get details on competence. And if I click scroll down, I get data that is being refreshed every once in a while, depending on how the industry is kind of flowing. So I get the view on fundings in the industry, publications, patents. So this is really interesting because then I can kind of, let's say, dive deeper into the macro trends as well. And then here I also get lots of benchmarkings that I can look at. What is also important, which I think is really helpful for your own analysis, or when you're working for your own strategy, if you're, you want more insights, you can also evaluate yourself. So I can go to evaluate megatrends, and then I get to fill out some questionnaires. And then I get in this view here, because I didn't fill it out, my point, so own evaluation, my dark red dot is somewhere along this because I didn't fill it out. But if I did fill it out, I would get into the benchmarking, and then it would show, for example, I am here compared to the database. I am here more advanced or less advanced than the database. And that helps me to kind of figure out what areas I might want to look into to improve on, or what might be trends that are affecting me that I need to be, let's say, prepared for. And that is really helpful for planning, because we're looking at trends. We are kind of indicating, okay, this will be more relevant for you in the future. This will have more impact for you in the future. And that helps me to kind of plan out how I want to integrate maybe new topics, new tasks, etc. Yes, absolutely. So the recording, we will make that available on the ECCP, but I'll also send a link to once it's online, so you can access it. So again, this trend universe is really interesting, but it is only available to pro users. So that's why I strongly suggest that you update your profile and get the pro user badge, because this is, I think, a really interesting tool. We also have, you can see on the Trend Universe page, we have descriptions, we have a video of a webinar that a colleague did, and we also have documents here, so like manuals, etc. So all of that is available to you. For the profile recording, let's go here. Again, I'll send you a link once it's on the website, but it will be here on the page where you also find the registration link. You will also find the user manual, which has kind of the step-by-step screenshots of all profile types. So if there's, and we have kind of, I can show it to you. We also have kind of little bubbles where something is new, or something that you need to consider, or where it's not 100% clear what we mean. We have kind of explanatory notes. And this is for all the profiles. So we have that on the website as well as a PDF. And here will also probably be where the recording will be saved. But again, I'll send you the links to the page so you can access it. Are there any questions? No? If you do feel, I see some, if you do feel that you need some help, or maybe, you know, you don't have time to do it now, but you get back to it in 2 weeks and you don't remember everything, then please feel free to reach out. You may have noticed that this is the first of this kind of webinar, but we are kind of testing out if you guys would like to have some sort of, let's say, regular kind of drop-in session, which would be kind of regular sessions where everyone can just come in and ask questions, or, you know, have help or somewhat. So that's the plan. You can see I do have a calendar for the different profile types that I want to go through, but afterwards we do consider offering these kinds of Q&A sessions, or, you know, very, very, let's say, very loose and very chill sessions where it won't be recorded and everyone just can drop in if they have a question, and it's not mandatory or anything. So we're thinking about this. So we will test out if that is of interest. You know, if I have several sessions where I just sit by myself, then probably we won't offer them anymore. But I've seen this work for other projects really well, that people just come in if they have a question, don't come in if they don't. It's really just an offer on our side. So we will test that out as well once we are through all the other webinars, and then we'll send out notifications on communication as well, of course, so that you have a standing appointment in the calendar where you can just drop in if you like. Okay, perfect. Thank you for the feedback. Again, I'll email you the link once it's online, and if you do have any questions, please reach out. We also can have quick one-on-one calls. That is no issue at all. More than happy to do so. Yeah, thank you so much for joining and for participating. Yeah, I hope to see you all soon. Thank you, everyone.